Hello and welcome to our webinar titled Serving Immigrants and Newcomer Clients in St. Thomas and Elgin. I am Patricia Hunter from the St. Thomas-Elgin Local Immigration Partnership, and I am joined here today with Julianne Hunt from YWCA St. Thomas-Elgin and Helen Bergen from Mennonite Community Services, also known as MCS. So we've gathered here today because we have been experiencing many questions about what is it that our settlement agencies offer, how do they support newcomer clients, and why should we be referring to these two agencies? So locally, we do have two agencies that do this work, and we've all been able to gather here today to provide this information. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the mic over to Julianne Hunt, who is going to take the lead on the presentation for now.
Thank you, Patricia. So first of all, I would like to thank STLIP and Mennonite Community Services for the opportunity to deliver and collaborate on this presentation. It's really great to have an opportunity as service providers to come in together and engage in this type of session, whether it's virtually or in person. And Helen and I were really pleased to be able to share information today about newcomer settlement journey and some of the different types of services and supports that they may need as they transition to life in Canada. So as mentioned, my name is Julianne Hunt, and I'm the manager of the Settlement Service Program with the YWCA. I've been with the organization for about 6 years now, and one of the many things that I've learned in that time and that I would like to highlight today is just how wildly different and unique individual settlement experiences may be, depending on the circumstances of their arrival. So their age, their education, their social networks, and many other factors. And so, while for the purpose of this presentation, Helen and I were going to speak a little bit about newcomer settlement in the short, the intermediate, and the long term, it's really important to remember that these distinctions are somewhat artificial because individuals and families, they do go through these stages at very different rates. But as a community, it really is a shared effort to help newcomers move forward on their settlement goals and also to create an environment where they can succeed. So maybe we'll go to the next slide. And we really wanted to start with a brief overview of who is considered a newcomer or an immigrant and who can be referred to settlement services. So all of us, we have multiple identities, whether they may be inherited or achieved, and that define how we see ourselves and also how others see us. And overall, there's no single definition of a newcomer because how we self-identify really depends on the context that we find ourselves in. Some individuals may identify as newcomers and they have been in Canada for 10, 15 years or longer, and they may appear to be very well settled in their life. So that being said, newcomers who access settlement services, they generally fall in the following categories. So they might be permanent residents of Canada, which means that they are legally authorized to live, study, and work in Canada, but they haven't been deemed citizens by the federal government. Sometimes you might hear permanent residents being referred to as landed immigrants. Individuals who come to Canada as convention refugees or were identified as protected persons by the Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada, they can also have permanent resident status. So you may come across those individuals in the kind of work that you do. Settlement services, we can also support naturalized Canadians, and those are individuals who became citizens by moving through the citizenship application process, but they may continue to seek settlement assistance. And we can also support temporary residents, and those are foreign nationals who are legally authorized to enter Canada for temporary purposes like working or studying. And one example would be individuals in our community who are here through the Seasonal Agricultural Worker Program. And we can also support refugee claimants who are waiting on a decision on their refugee claims, and those individuals may have a work or a study permit as well. So how are settlement services delivered? In St. Thomas-Elgin, so we have Mennonite Community Services and the YWCA who offer settlement services to newcomers. to help them adjust to life in Canada, to connect to government and community services, and also to work towards their settlement goals. So both of these organizations, we are funded by the federal and the provincial government, and the majority of services that we provide are free. It's just that in some instances, there might be fees associated with some services. So for example, if somebody is maybe working on a citizenship application, they would be responsible for paying the government processing fee for that application, but they would not be charged for the time that they spent with the settlement worker on that application. That would be free. And it's also important to note that in some services, they have specific eligibility criteria, which can impact whether or not a newcomer may be able to access and participate in that program. And one example would be the YWCA's English language training program. That program is for adults who are 18 years of age or older and who are permanent residents of Canada, convention refugees, or have an approval in principle of their PR application. So in cases like that, settlement workers can still work to see what other services they might be eligible for. We also we wanted to highlight some of the boundaries and limitations of service provision before we speak a little bit more about some of the different needs that settlement workers can support, not only in order to help facilitate referrals to settlement services, but also because it's an important part of our work that newcomers to Canada are well informed of the services that they can expect when they go to a settlement agencies. So the first thing I wanted to highlight is that settlement workers are not authorized to provide immigration or citizenship advice or representation under the Immigration and Refugees Protection Act. So they're not members of provincial law societies, and they can't provide advice to individuals on which citizenship or immigration option they should look to pursue, how they might be able to respond to a question on an application form, or represent individuals in citizenship or immigration related proceedings. But they are able to direct individuals to legitimate sources of information on topics like Canada's permanent resident program, work permits, study permits, or other travel documents, and help them to navigate the legal system so that they can be informed of their rights and responsibilities. Settlement workers can also provide individuals with information about housing options and referrals to housing supports, which is something that Helen will speak to a little bit further, but they would not assist individuals to locate or to secure specific permanent accommodations. And we also do not provide employment-related support, such as assistance with resume writing or finding work. In those cases, we would direct newcomers to other community-based programs or organizations that specialize in that kind of field. And so that could include the employment services available through Mennonite Community Services, or also other partners in the community. And finally, settlement services, we do not offer interpretation or translation for services by other agencies. So both MCS and the YWCA, we have translation and interpretation funding, and we have settlement workers who may speak different languages and can offer settlement support in those languages. But that being said, it is the responsibility of other agencies to acquire professional interpretation or translation services for clients who are looking to access their programs. And STLIB has developed a wonderful document that is available on their website that lists some of the different professional interpretation and translation resources that are available in our region. So I would encourage everyone to check that out on the website. And all of these boundaries are in place to protect both clients and staff. And it's also a way that to complement the many existing services and supports that already exist in our community. And so I think that with that, I will pass it on to Helen to speak a little bit about the challenges or needs that newcomers may face upon their arrival.
Thank you very much for the introduction. It's such a privilege to cooperate with the STLIP and with the YWCA in providing this presentation. So the initial and short-term needs of newcomers can vary somewhat. And just to reiterate again that the needs are fluid, and we're providing a general guideline in terms of the categories and where we say something is initial or a short-term need. Sometimes newcomers will access settlement services within a few days of arriving in Canada, and others prefer to wait until they're a little bit more settled. But there are often time sensitive, and that we want to make sure that we are providing the information in a timely manner so that they are accessing services as they are needed. So some of the initial or short-term needs that clients might be facing can be put under the general supports category. For example, if someone is looking to find information about where to access very basic supplies in order to put in their home, or if they're looking to find out where they can buy clothing or any other necessities, it can be overwhelming to go into a store or to know which store sells which items, so we can help them locate and be comfortable purchasing items and knowing how to interact with the people inside the store or inside the other service providers. We can also help them understand what it's like to live in Canada, some of the rules around etiquette that might be surprising to them, so they feel more comfortable knowing that they are doing the best that they can. And I think also helping the existing community to understand what newcomers are experiencing and some of the differences in terms of culture and traditions and what we consider normal and what we consider unique. We can help the newcomers in a variety of languages. Settlement services may not all have the same language capacity. So for example, at MCS, we have English and Low German as the main languages that we can serve in. But there is, since recently, we have someone who speaks Spanish. But at the YWCA, they may have different settlement workers who speak different languages. And certainly if we go into the bigger city centers, there are going to be a more diverse selection of settlement workers who speak different languages. Having said that, as Julianne said, we don't provide document translation. So if someone needs a birth certificate translated, for example, in order to register for school, that has to be referred out to a member of the Association of Translators in Ontario. But we can help them access that service and make sure they know how to make payments or how to connect with them. In terms of finding out how money and finances are handled in Canada, settlement services can provide a lot of information about how to, where to go to fill out a bank, where to go to apply for a bank account, for example, and what types of documents they ought to take with them, or what kinds of questions they may encounter in the financial institution. Or we can find resources for them that they can learn more about how to find a mortgage, or where to find rental properties and what kinds of information they should know in order to protect themselves against issues around renting a place. So for example, if we want to show them how to file a complaint with the board who is responsible for the tenancies, and we want to make sure that they know what their rights and responsibilities are in terms of moving in and moving out, setting up utilities, and making sure that they're comfortable notifying a landlord of any issues and communicating in that way. Certainly, we would provide some support in transportation. Here in our area, there aren't any public transportation options. We're not generally funded to transport clients from place to place. We would rather teach them how to transport themselves. So if they're living in a rural area It is better if we can show them how to get a driver's license. And this is something that we would certainly want them to do and show them how they can do that. And then in the long run, purchase a vehicle so they can drive themselves or to access public transportation in the meantime, rather than relying on settlement workers to be transporting newcomers. As you can imagine, there are a lot of newcomers and this could get very time consuming very quickly, and in the long run doesn't help the newcomer. And we are also happy to refer them to other agents who do provide transportation services. And of course, we want to make sure everyone is feeling safe so that they know where to find resources in the community if there's an emergency or if they need extra help on off hours or when there isn't a settlement service worker available. We are also very aware that the parents of newcomer youth are wanting their children to get into a good school. Often this is one reason why newcomers come to Canada in the first place. They feel that the education is better here in Canada. And so we're wanting to make sure we can provide information that they know how to access the school system. And this is true of both children and adults, to make sure that everyone is able to upgrade if they want to upgrade, or to transfer skills and certificates and credentials to make sure that they know how to do that and where to go to do that. But as well for children, that they can register at school and know the types of things that are accessible to them through the school system. On the other hand, we're also very happy to say that there are Swiss workers, settlement workers in schools here in our area, including most recently the Catholic school, or at least one of the Catholic schools. And those Swiss workers, the settlement workers in schools, can assist within the school building to make sure that the families are connected to the teachers and that they know the kinds of supports that they can receive within the system. Other programs in the community that are specifically geared towards parents with children. For example, MCS, we have the Mom and Baby program, which is for new moms or pregnant moms so that they can feel supported through the whole process of the birth and the delivery. This is very important because it's often a very exciting, but can also be a very scary time if you're in a new country. The way that the healthcare system treats new moms could be completely different in Canada used in their country of origin. So we want to make sure that they are familiar with what the doctors are going to be asking them and the kinds of exams that could be done at the medical institution, and that they are familiar with the hospital once it's time to actually go to the hospital, or in a different place if they're choosing an alternative birthing option. And to also provide supports when new moms have questions and are unfamiliar because they have not had children before. We're also happy to help newcomers access other community services. For example, if children want to participate in sports teams or want to learn to swim, to make sure that they know where to go to sign up and how to get there and come back home safely, and what the requirements and the eligibility criteria are for the various programs available in the community. It can also be very overwhelming for a newcomer to find all of the government programs. For example, a family with children can apply, but the newcomer may not know how to go about doing that and what to do if correspondence comes back from Canada Revenue Agency asking for additional information. And settlement workers can provide some of the context as to what CRA or the Canada Child Benefits is going to be asking from them, and to print out forms, for example, if someone needs the form printed out. And a lot of times newcomers may not have internet set up, or they may not have it set up yet, depending on their situation. So some of these forms are not as readily available, or the online applications aren't as readily available to a newcomer as they would be to an existing family in the community. We can also assist with birth and marriage certificates if needed. Again, when you're in a new country, it can be confusing to know how to fill out forms and what the expectation is in terms of what the Service Ontario programming wants from them versus what they would have been used to in their home country. So we can help them find the form, and in some cases make sure that they understand how to complete it and what to do in terms of making payments and that kind of thing. For seniors who are newcomers, it can also often be even more difficult, because if you've spent your entire life in one place and then to move to Canada as a senior is also challenging. And it comes with a different set of challenges than for a family with young children. And again, if they are applying for old age security pension, even those who've been in Canada for a while, once you hit a certain age and become a senior, there is a new learning curve of what does it mean to age in Canada, and what are the options in Canada in terms of financial support, and who is eligible and who is not eligible for pensions. And so this is something that settlement workers can provide a lot of information to the newcomer, and again, helping to connect with the appropriate government agencies. There are, of course, some instances where there are disabled individuals in a newcomer family, and this is something that we can help them access through the Ontario Disability Support Program or other supportive programs within the community for individuals with disabilities. And everyone needs a social insurance number, of course. So I think that is one of the main questions that newcomers have initially, is how do I get a social insurance number? Or what do I need it for? And how is it used? So settlement workers can provide the information in terms of how to use a social insurance number, to whom the number should be given, to make sure that they are protecting themselves against fraud or identity theft, and not be giving out that information to a cousin just because they don't happen to have a number, for example. So that is something that as a newcomer, you may not know how important it is to keep those kinds of identity documents secure. We can also provide information about housing. Not that we go out and find housing for newcomers, but rather that we can provide them with the places where they can look for housing, or if they're looking for geared to income housing, to make sure they know where to find those applications and what the criteria are in order to be eligible, and to make sure that people know what their rights are within the Housing Act. I touched a little bit on education, but just to clarify, there are a number of language programs that are geared specifically to newcomers that are funded by the federal government. For example, what Julianne was referring to was the LINK classes, which is an acronym for Language Instruction for Newcomers. And this has a specific criteria for people who are permanent residents in Canada, and there are a few other people who are eligible. But there are a lot of that have a more generous eligibility criteria. For example, adult education through the public school boards often have programs to learn or to get equivalency testing done, and to find out what level of English a newcomer is speaking and how to go about improving that, or to find job-specific language skills that will help them in the long run. Settlement services can also provide support or information about employment. Not that we provide direct resume writing assistance. We would refer newcomers to the employment services within MCS or to other partners in the community. And we would also encourage newcomers to volunteer. It's a great place to learn language skills, to develop other work skills, and to meet other newcomers, to build the social life of the newcomer family. So we would definitely encourage placements in volunteering with other agencies or with other community programs, and to make sure that they understand their rights as a worker, so that they're not staying in an employment place because they're afraid to leave, but that they're also able to expand their own career goals and accomplish what they would like to accomplish. As we have said earlier, we're not funded to transport the newcomer. However, we can provide information about how to access public transportation if it's available, or to refer clients to other programs. For example, at MCS, we have a volunteer driver program that can drive a newcomer to a health appointment, but it is dependent on availability oftentimes. And there are other programs in the community that can teach people to drive or to apply for a driver's license. And this can often be challenging if you don't know English or French. And so there are other programs or other people in the community who can practice driving, and that's something that settlement services can help help a newcomer find, so that they know where to go to learn to drive and what they all need to apply for a driver's license in Ontario, or to exchange a foreign license from a particular jurisdiction into an Ontario driver's license. Settlement services can also provide referrals to healthcare providers. It can be confusing in order to find a doctor, or there aren't a lot of doctors in our area specifically who are accepting patients. So we can help them put their name onto a waiting list, for example, or where to go for an emergency, so that they know there are options that they can get treated, and to make sure that people understand when they are eligible for Ontario health cards, how to apply for Ontario health card, and what the obligations are in order to retain it. It's often also important that newcomers see a doctor. Depending on their situation and where they're coming from, there may be immediate health needs that they want to address that they haven't previously been able to address in the country of origin, or there just may be arising needs that anyone could have and that the newcomer would likewise need to see a doctor about. And now I'm going to hand it back to Julianne.
Thank you, Helen. So when we talk about the medium term, individuals, they will have been adjusting to their new surroundings, a new culture, and there may be some shifting expectations or goals that are changing from when a newcomer first arrived in Canada. So at this stage, settlement workers can continue to support newcomers to Canada to make informed decisions about their lives and to develop and move forward on the goals that they may set for themselves. And so they may be looking for opportunities to develop or strengthen literacy, language, or other essential skills, so that maybe they can improve their work readiness, that if they are looking for new employment opportunities, or want to pursue further education and training. And whether a newcomer may be entering the labor market for the first time or looking to change jobs for the first time, that can bring a lot of unique challenges. And so settlement staff can support that. Newcomers may also be looking to create or expand the social networks. Many of them will have left behind very well-established social supports, family, friends, and neighborhood institutions. And so in the case of refugees, for example, who've had to flee their homes, these kinds of social ties, they provide important emotional and physical support, but they have been disrupted and changed dramatically when they come to Canada. So that's also an important medium-term need that we see. And as consumers, newcomers may also be looking to learn more about their rights in regards to a lot of different topics, such as credits, loans, debts, scams and identity theft, or even contracts and memberships. And I think it's important to take note of that, recognizing that fraudsters will prey on vulnerable individuals, including seniors. And they might also exploit the trust and the friendship that exists in different religious or ethnic communities. And as newcomers become more settled in the medium term, they may also look or seek different kinds of immigration-related information. So for example, starting to renew some immigration documents, maybe changing their immigration status in Canada, or gaining more information about how they might be able to reunite with immediate or extended family members. And then looking at the long term, we can generally say that newcomers would be engaged in different aspects of community life compared to when they first arrived, and it's more a matter of individual choice. So over time, they're developing the knowledge and the skills that they need to choose their level of participation in the community. There will be fewer barriers in place, again, than when they first arrived, and they're more welcomed and included in different activities. And some of these needs might also be spilling over from the medium term. So they could be actively preparing to apply for or waiting on a decision for their Canadian citizenship applications, because in order to apply to become a Canadian citizen, you do have to be in the country as a permanent resident for a certain period of time. They might be looking to renew their permanent resident cards, which generally expire after 5 years. And permanent residents would need these documents in order to travel to Canada. They might also, in the long term, again, be working towards some other employment-related goals. Maybe they are looking for a higher paying or a more sustainable position. They could be looking for a new career, or maybe even seeking employment in their field, in a field that they were active in their country of origin, but where they maybe haven't had the language skills or the opportunities to pursue the credential recognition process that they need to complete in order to be employed in Canada in that field. And all of these goals would require different access to education, training, or employment programs that settlement workers would be able to help facilitate. They might also be looking to build and strengthen their financial literacy and planning. So maybe at this point, they want to look at different or learn about different types of long-term savings and investment options, maybe looking at choosing a mortgage and preparing to buy their first home, and some of the related information that entails. So learning about home insurance in Canada, or also about how to work with a real estate agent. And finally, they may be looking to get involved in volunteering at this stage. So that could be to continue to gain Canadian work experience, or maybe to practice their English language skills. But it can also be to keep building social networks in their new community and give back to the community as well. And so the last thing that we wanted to leave you with is to just touch on a few other settlement needs that arise, but that don't really clearly fall into a certain stage of a newcomer settlement journey. And again, these may also be the kinds of issues that may not be directly identified as a need by newcomers, because they may not be fully aware of their rights and responsibilities as they settle in Canada. So the two examples that we thought of, or that we wanted to share, was to make sure newcomers are aware of their tax obligations and the resources that are available in the community, such as volunteer tax clinics. And that would be especially important for individuals who are in their first year or in their first few years of arrival, that they are aware of their obligation to file taxes. And the other one that we saw earlier this year would be the mandatory requirement for households to complete and return Canada's census questionnaire. And part of that is that settlement workers can help to explain the census and also to facilitate access to census information in different languages. That concludes the formal part of our presentation. And so maybe I'll pass the microphone back to Patricia.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Julianne. It really helps our service providers better understand the different aspects of the work of a settlement agency. So it's really great just to get that overview. I'm sure there's a few things that we've missed, but I think we've hit a lot of the key pieces as well. So as we have a better understanding of what the settlement agencies provide, it's also important to understand what the work of the local immigration partnership is. So we, as a local immigration partnership, we do not formally support newcomers in the community. Instead, we are considered a community capacity building project, and we work to increase the awareness of diversity, and we work to build supports to better integrate our newcomers in the region. So we are federally funded, similar to these two agencies. And we also have a steering committee that helps direct the type of work that we do, helps direct and focus the activities that we're going to work on annually. So we are working with all of the agencies in St. Thomas and Elgin. Anyone who thinks that they need better supports to better serve their immigrant clients can reach out to STLIP or St. Thomas-Elgin Local Immigration Partnership, and we will work to help support you as you work to increase the level of support you're able to give to newcomer clients. And when we use the word clients, we don't mean newcomers or immigrants as has been used in this presentation. Instead, when we say our clients, we're talking about the community at large. And this is initiatives that we have where we're talking about how to support or how to promote the benefits of diversity, how to look at the increased capacity that our community has when you have diverse people here. We also look at service providers. So that's anyone here who's listening to this presentation. We always try to do better presentations to help you better understand what services are offered. We offer our annual Walk With Me event, which I hope everyone here knows about. And we also look to support our local employers who are often hiring newcomers, and how can we better bridge that gap to ensure that they understand how to better support immigrants and newcomers into their workforce. So that's just the iceberg of the work we do. We often, because we are more public facing than our two settlement agencies, we do receive a lot of referrals for clients that people might have. And those referrals are typically sent over to one of these two agencies, depending on the scope of needs or the area that the client would live in. So all referrals, if they go to anyone, we would happily take them, but they often are deferred to one of the two agencies that are represented here. So in lieu of us doing the referral for you, we're going to just go into how you can access and how you can connect with these agencies. So Julianne, if you can speak first.
Sure, thank you. So the best way to make initial contact with the settlement program at the YWCA would just be to contact, to either send me an email at the address that's listed on the screen there, or to call our main office, again, at the number that is listed there. And then the initial contact can be made. Maybe it can be clarified whether there could be a need for interpretation or translation services that can be arranged as part of that initial meeting. We also have a form available on the YWCA's website that can be filled out directly on the form as well, on the website as well, excuse me. So that could be another option too.
And in order to connect with MCS, again, the best way is just to send an email or give us a call. The phone number listed there is for our front desk, and that individual can then do a brief question and answer with the client, find out what their needs are, and decide from there whether we need to book an appointment in person or whether we can serve them by telephone.
With that, we thank you for taking the time to better learn about the services offered from our settlement agencies, and that through this you can better serve your newcomer and immigrant clients. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.